We often discuss how to be a prepper or a homesteader or have a sustainable life here at home, and we talk about issues that deal with us personally because that's what affects us the most. However, we're going to discuss things that actually are going to affect us, but they're going to affect us in a way that America as a whole will be affected. Internationally, we're missing a lot of things and we're looking weaker and weaker. So when America looks weak across the world, then I think we're going to see more peril, more money issues, maybe even war. We need to look at some things that are going to cause crises, and if we're not careful, it's going to happen sooner than later. This video is going to be a good one. It could be eye-opening, but hopefully you are paying attention to these things, and the things we can't control, we need to be aware of, so then therefore the things that we can control, we do better, we become more vigilant, and we figure out how to be a better prepper or homesteader for our families. Let's jump into the video today.
Standing underneath the lights.
Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. We hope you enjoyed your weekend with your family and enjoyed Easter and the festivities that went around it. Again, as a Christian, it is a special time for us and our family. So we hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. Now let's jump into some things that we need to talk about for the week. We try to focus again on things here, but internationally we look weak. It's gonna cause war, more food issues, or again, America's weakness with our money. First and foremost, we're not making anything anymore. So let's talk domestically just for a second. It tends to be everything that we get, we have to import from all these countries, including a lot of our food. Even though we do have a lot of farmers here, we're starting to weed some of them out again, and we have an aging farmer. So we're starting to see more food and more goods be imported into America. Well, when we're not producing a lot of our own goods, we're having to buy our commodities overseas, then that means they can manipulate those things to where we have to either pay more for them or we look weaker because we have nothing hard to stand on to make sure that we say, hey, this is the policy it's going to be because we're going to withhold things from you. So we seem to be importing a lot more than we're exporting. Think of the oil issue that just took place with OPEC. They're going to cut production. It's going to make your fuel go up. You've already seen that. We've talked about that in videos prior. So because we are not producing goods, and a lot of things that we're having to, a lot of the consumer buys that we're buying, medicines and healthcare and goods, all those things are being imported. We need to get manufacturing running again. We need to start producing things here again, so then therefore we look strong across the world. Number two, our political leaders, I say leaders very loosely, but the people that are over us are making internal fights. If you turn on news right now, you're either going to see the issue in Tennessee, or you're going to see an issue with the cities, or you're going to see issues with the state governments and local governments against national government. You're going to see the polarization of the left and right. You're seeing internal fighting. And America's demise and America's weakness will be definitely based on internal issues because we are basically imploding. A lot of the issues that we're having domestically that's causing more international issues for us to look weak in is simply because we're so at each other's throat about every little thing. Now, is there issues that we need to stand on? Absolutely. But for the most part of our history, even when we disagreed about the little things, overall we wanted freedom. Overall, America looked strong. Now we're so polarized, we can't even tell what gender you are. We can't even talk about how food is good for you and this food is the best for you and this food's bad for you. We can't even talk about that. We won't even talk about history because it's either one way or the other. We have no common ground as America anymore. So the infighting is pretty much caused by the media and politicians. I believe if we turn the media off and we turn politicians off and quit listening to them so much, we probably would realize there's a lot more common ground and a commonality, especially with about 60 to 80% of the population. Now you may have extremes on either side. There's a lot of things that we can agree upon if we would just not listen to some of the politicians and the media. That infighting is causing us to look very weak and will cause more crisis. Number three, and this is for both sides of the aisle, we have to quit looking for leaders in the nursing home. And here's what I mean. Nothing against people who are very brilliant at 80, 90 years old. I understand that. But remember, we in our society see an elder population. We call them seasoned, and we call them gray-headed, and we want to see them do well. They've worked hard all their life, and we tend to see them want to go into retirement. You may not be as sharp as you once was. You may not be as agile and as fit and have as much endurance as you once was. It happens to all of us. I'm not just talking about older people, I'm talking about our whole population. We age. Sometimes it's time to get some of those politicians and some of those leaders out that can't even get a coherent sentence out. Our leadership on both sides is very weak because a lot of those ladies and men may be a little too old and they maybe need to retire. We need to find younger, more vibrant leaders, and not just because they're young. We need to find wisdom, and we need to find people who want to do well. That goes back to the career politicians issue. We need to get away from career politicians. We need to get to term limits for sure. But when we have older leaders on both sides, both on the Senate side, the Congress, now of course our presidency, when we show all these old people and all they're doing is falling, and all of a sudden they can't get a coherent sentence out, they don't know which way they're going. I mean, we've got like 3 or 4 senators who have failed, and it's like really put them in a bad way. We've got congressmen who are very old. We've got a president who sometimes we wonder if does he have dementia and does he even know what he's even talking about or where he's even at. We may not need to put those older leaders over the country in such a stressful and strainful time. The anxiety may not be good. I know I have an older population that watches this, so please don't take offense to that because we're all getting older. I can't do what my son does now. My son can outrun me on just about anything. He could probably whoop me if it really came down to wrestling. But what I mean is, it's time to find some younger people to replace some of those older people in leadership. I know I'm in my mid-30s. I'm not going to be as sharp as maybe I am now when I'm in my mid-70s. So do I think I want to be working as hard, doing as much right on this farm or in my job as I'm doing when I'm 35? Probably not. So let's kind of look at that in a political realm, and then looking at and running a country, the leader of the free world maybe needs to be younger. I'm not saying that to make fun of them, but do you see how it's almost like he's getting railroaded? It's like America's getting left out of a lot of treaties and policies and big decisions being made worldwide because I think we look like a mockery between all these things that we are doing to ourselves. The implode, the fact that we have older leadership that's not really coherent. I'm thinking that's why, again, America looks weak and we're not being utilized as much as what China would be in treaties and in negotiations. Can cause some issues. Now, that kind of brings me to the next point. Is our dollar. Our dollar is struggling, so it's making America look very weak. Saudi Arabia, Mexico, of course China and the other BRICS nations, Malaysia. Some of these countries are saying, look, we just don't need the dollar anymore. There was an article the other day that said the Kenyan leader was like, look, I told people they need to get away from the dollar because it could be very volatile. And that's scary that the international world is looking at our dollar and saying, even though it is the currency, even though it's what we use now, and even though it is the best right now, we need to start maneuvering away because it's struggling. There's a lot of issues with the dollar. It's based on debt. Look at the crises that are happening internationally with the banks. We don't need to put all our eggs in this basket of the dollar. So we look weak across the world because of our dollar. The reason our dollar is so weak is because we're not doing anything domestically. We're not building that dollar up. We're not looking like a strong economy because we're having to buy so much. Our economy is still struggling. We're still printing money. We're not balancing a budget. So we're causing those issues. So if we want a strong dollar, we've got to get back to doing good policy. But if we keep doing what we're doing with the dollar, this is going to make an overwhelmingly huge crisis because everything that we deal with deals with money. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. If you don't have money, it's hard to live in this world. And if we're destroying our own dollar, what is that going to look like for America in the future? Along with all these other issues, number 5, we're causing more problems overall in the world by being an instigator. Here we are causing issues. We're basically doing a proxy war in Ukraine. There's no reason in that. We need to get out of Ukraine. The CIA came out just this week in an article and said there's no real clear-cut winning strategy here in Ukraine. We have to de-escalate and we have to find a way to have a peace treaty. Now, does that mean we're going to stop? I don't know. I'm just saying we've wasted $200 billion of our money that we could be utilizing here with all the issues that we're having, and we're in a war we shouldn't be in. Now, on top of that, we have leaders of both parties going to Taiwan. And it's like we're trying to instigate another issue in Taiwan with China. Then we're in Syria, dealing with issues with Iran and Syria. Now, I know we want peace, quote unquote peace, across the world, but that's not our job. These are regional issues. The Ukraine and Russia, they're a certain group of individuals that are from that area of the world, and it's not our job to be in their business. Now, do I want to see people killed? No, but I believe we're instigating more of the issues, which is causing that war to keep on going, because we keep funding a war that looks like it's kind of a dead end. And now the same way with Taiwan and China, we could go in there and fix the issue and try to help be a common ground and someone to talk to, but we look too weak to do that. So because we look weak, China's kind of doing what they want to do, and if they want to invade Taiwan, looks like they're probably going to do it. But now we're sending leaders over there and we're saying we're going to stand with Taiwan. We don't need to be in wars. I don't understand why we want to put ourselves in wars and foreign issues. Again, we have so many issues back at home. Why do we want to get in other wars across overseas? Especially wars that are so far away from us that we almost don't have a stance to be able to be in those areas and have the assets over there in those areas. It's just not smart. Quit worrying about the world. Let's try to build up America and try to get America back on strong footing and sure footing, so that way we look strong across the world. And I believe if we look strong, a lot of these issues wouldn't be happening. So number 5, we're causing more of these conflicts and these war issues, I think, by putting our 2 cents in every situation in these little areas. Another reason we look weak across the world is seeing us with no moral compass. We are trying to push these issues and these weird, very almost satanic, demonic kind of style way of living across the world. And look, I want you to have freedom. I want you to have liberty. I want you to do what you want to do. You do you. However, when it comes to our moral grounds as a nation, and we say, well, we're going to withhold funding, or we're not going to help these countries because they're not pushing these certain beliefs, and we're not going to give our dollars to them because they're not doing this or that with their people. Well, I honestly believe a lot of these countries look at America and say they're so degrading themselves morally, we don't really want whatever they have to give us. We see what the morals and values America has, and now because they seem like they don't have morals, it seems like America is struggling. So why do we want that brought over here? They almost look at America as like, look, we don't want what you've got. Sometimes it's not even worth the money, because we see the problems that you're actually putting on your people because there's no moral compass anymore. I believe people look at America and say they've kind of lost their way. Not only in the fact of money, not only the fact in leadership, but in the fact of just morals. It's like a moral decay. And what we've seen with a lot of world powers over history, if you go back and look at history, a lot of the issues in the fall of those empires was moral decay, was their value systems. They've kind of lost their way. So now I think a lot of countries and other places across the world are not really wanting to kind of involve us in things, because our morals and our values have kind of lost its way. So now, kind of wrapping up, we're weak because of these, and yes, some of these are in a nutshell, some of these kind of go hand in hand. But when we look weak, when America is weak because of things like this, it makes our freedoms and liberties be very, very, very much at risk. Not only domestically, but internationally. I believe when America is not strong, it makes the bad players in the world do what they want to do. We're over here trying to say, don't do that, don't do that. And we really have no leg to stand on because we look weak. So we've got to fix these things, because if we don't fix these things and build strength again for America and the persona, the perspective of America, then I honestly believe we're going to see more chaos, crisis, and we're going to see more war. We're going to see more depressions and more food shortages, because there's some people in the world that are evil and they're wanting to do evil things. So if America doesn't have strong leadership and a strong play across the world, I believe we're going to see a decay across the world. And these crises, these weaknesses that America has, I think are only helping and fueling these conflicts and these crises across the world more and more. So now, what can we do? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. We've got to find better leadership through and through. We have to rein in spending. We have to get control of our morals and our values. When we start doing some of those things and start healing ourselves that way, I believe then America will start building back and being stronger. Hopefully, it won't be too late. America needs to turn it around. If we don't turn it around and we don't start looking stronger because of these policies, I honestly believe we're going to see massive chaos across the world, like we're already seeing, but I think it's going to be so much worse. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about some of these things that I talked about? Did any of these offend you or hurt your feelings? Let me know. That's okay. But I want you to think, it really could be what's causing us to look weak across the world, which ultimately will cause more international issues. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're new to the Max, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up because it does help us stay in the algorithm and it doesn't cost you a thing. I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless you. Happy homestead, y'all.
There's no one left but you and me. It's like a made-up place that only